Hey, how's it going everyone? I'm White Pointer, and platform fighters have continued to gain in popularity over the years, obviously with Super Smash Bros. Being the series that basically started the whole idea, and the yardstick that all other games are measured against. There's been quite a lot of games in the genre that have been released over the last 20 years or so to try to capitalise on Smash's success. Games from big name publishers such as Multiversus, PlayStation All-Stars Battle Royale, and Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl, to indie efforts such as Rivals of Aether, Brawlhalla and Framemakers. However, one thing that's common across all of these games, regardless of whether they choose to use a 2D or 3D art style, is that the gameplay is always on the 2D plane. So this begs the question, what about 3D platform fighters, where your movement is in a true 3D space rather than being restricted to a 2D one? Do 3D platform fighters even exist? Well, yes, they are actually a thing, and in this video I thought I would explore some of them and bring them to your attention. So let's spend some time looking at a subgenre of fighting games that deserve some more exposure. Before I go any further though, I do want to make a distinction between 3D platform fighters and arena fighters, because to me, these are two different things. Just so I'm clear what I'm talking about, I don't mean arena fighters. To me, arena fighters tend to have much larger stages, little to no stage interactivity, little to no item or weapon drops, and frankly, not many actual platforms. But the biggest thing about them is that the camera focuses on just one character, usually from a view from behind or over the shoulder, and follows that character around. This means these games are usually online multiplayer only, or if they support local play, have some kind of split screen mode. Examples of arena fighters would be Dissidia Final Fantasy, ARMS, DKO Divine Knockout, Kill la Kill If, and Pokken Tournament. These are a separate thing and not what I'm covering. So for this video, I'm considering platform fighters to be on somewhat smaller stages, with plenty of interactivity and variations in height that make a difference to gameplay. There should be item and weapon drops, and temporary power-ups, and most importantly, having a camera that stays focused on the stage so all characters can be seen at all times, zooming in and out and rotating to maintain this as the match plays out. Bonus points if it supports at least 4 players, and the way to KO an opponent isn't to simply just deplete their health, or at least perhaps offer different methods of KOing them. I guess we should start with one of the earliest examples of a 3D platform fighter, and that's Power Stone, developed by Capcom and first released in 1999 for the arcade and Dreamcast. To put that into perspective, that's actually the same year the original Super Smash Bros. Launched on Nintendo 64, so this would have been developed at the same time. This game is restricted to just one-on-one battles, and characters have health bars, so in some ways it bears more of a resemblance to traditional fighting games. But you can freely move around the arena, including jumping up to higher areas. Various parts of the stage can be interacted with, including being able to use objects scattered around the stage as temporary weapons, and various items can spawn in. As the match progresses, special gems called Power Stones drop into the arena, and picking up one of each of the 3 colours of these will temporarily transform your character into a powered up version. A sequel, titled Power Stone 2, released the following year in 2000, again for arcade and Dreamcast. It kept the same basic idea, but made a number of improvements to the original, including having modes that supported 4 players, more items, dynamic stages that transformed as the match progressed, even more stage interactivity, and being able to knock opponents off the stage, though it only resulted in some lost health and not a KO. Watching this in action, it really does look very Smash-like. Power Stone was popular enough to spawn its own anime series based on the games, but oddly, we never saw any more entries in the franchise, apart from a remaster collection of the 2 games for the PSP in 2006. Hopefully Capcom decides to revisit this series at some point, because the games were quite fun and unique, and it's a pity they're pretty difficult to play now. Even though we haven't seen a new Power Stone game since 2000, these 2 games would turn out to be extremely influential to the genre, and something that many other games base their gameplay on. For this next game, we're moving across to the original Xbox, with perhaps one of the best examples of this genre, and that's Kung Fu Chaos, released in 2003 and developed by Just Add Monsters, a developer who you may know better as Ninja Theory. In KFC, which I'm convinced was probably a deliberate initialism, you are a Kung Fu actor wannabe. Under the guidance of an eccentric director who is desperate to make a hit movie, you're fighting for real across dodgy and dangerous sets. If you're a fan of old cheesy kung fu flicks, you'll recognise that almost all the characters are a parody of some kind of kung fu movie character. You've got the old wise master, the ninja hero, a spoof of the Chinese monkey god, a parody of a popular Japanese martial arts comic book character, and half a dozen others. The object of Kung Fu Chaos is quite obviously to KO your opponents, but it's the different ways you can KO them that make the game appealing. The most obvious and easiest way to kill an opponent is to knock them to the ground and then throw them into an insta-kill hazard on the fighting arena. These can be deadly spikes, piranha-infested waters, poisonous gas and stone faces with switch-activated closing mouths, or you can simply toss your opponent off the edge of the battlefield into the bottomless abyss. You can also kill your opponents by depleting their health if you really wanted to, or you can use your super attacks, which you can execute after knocking your opponent down and taunting them 3 times. The game shines in 4-player multiplayer, but also has a very solid single-player experience, and some pretty fun mini-games. Some may find the Asian stereotypes questionable, but if that doesn't bother you, then Kung Fu Chaos is a great time, provided you can actually find it because it's never been re-released or remastered. Staying in this generation, we have Shrek Superslam. Yeah, this was a licensed game, and you'd think Shrek would be an odd choice of license, but this game actually works pretty well. It released in 2005, and finally we have a multi-platform game, being available on PlayStation 2, Xbox, GameCube and PC. There were also versions on Nintendo DS and Game Boy Advance, though they were different experiences. This brings together many characters from the Shrek films, such as Shrek, Donkey, Fiona, Puss in Boots, Gingerbread Man, Prince Charming and Pinocchio, as well as some new ones made specifically for the game. The way to KO an opponent in this game is somewhat unique, as each character has a slam meter at the bottom of the screen that gradually fills up as they land hits. Once it's full, they can unleash a slam attack that will take off a stock. It supports up to 4 players, items and weapons will spawn in during a match, and the environments are also destructible. In many ways this game is kinda janky. It's definitely not as polished as most other games covered in this video, but it's a pretty fun variety of janky, and a unique take on the Shrek license, seemingly based off those couple of fight scenes in the original movie. The voice acting is also great here. No, these aren't the voice actors from the films, but the actors they brought in to record the lines do a remarkably good job in emulating those more famous voices, and the game is full of amusing cutscenes. Oddly enough, Shrek Superslam also has a small but active competitive scene, believe it or not. Unfortunately, the developer, Sharper Games, is long defunct, and given this is a licensed game, the chances we'll ever see this in any form again are basically zero, but stranger things have happened. If you like the idea of a licensed game in this genre, but don't have any attachment to Shrek, then maybe you could check out The Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy, released in 2006 on the GameCube, PlayStation 2 and Wii by High Voltage Software. This uses a cel-shaded art style to match the aesthetic of the animated series, and many characters from the show are here, including Billy, Mandy, Grim, Erwin, Eris, Nurgle and Lord Payne. This has all of the usual quick attacks, heavy attacks, dashes and throws, as well as a super meter called a mojo meter that can be filled up and let loose to knock opponents out. You can also double jump in this game, a feature that most other games in this genre surprisingly lack. An interesting mechanic of Billy and Mandy though is that once all of your stocks are gone, you're left dazed on the ground, and an opponent actually needs to finish you off by executing a finishing blow to put you out of the game for good. If they fail this sequence, you get to live to fight a little longer. Each stage features plenty of hazards, including various traps that can be triggered by the players. There's objects to toss at your opponents, and there's also lots of various items and weapons that spawn in, including stage elements that you can temporarily control. Stages can also transform partway through a battle, often quite dramatically. For example, one moment you could be fighting in a laboratory, and the next you're on top of a bus being chased by a giant chicken. Like Shrek Superslam, there's a story mode here that has amusing cutscenes in the style of the show, but it scores extra points in this area because most of the show's voice talent reprise their roles, with Weird Al Yankovic providing the voice of the announcer. It's a pretty fun time, But once again, there's probably not much chance of any modern version of the grim adventures of Billy and Mandy happening, so you're just going to have to play this however you can. I'll finish this video off with the 3 more recent offerings that you can actually play on modern platforms. The first of these is LastFight, which is one of the most boring names I've ever heard for a game, and is apparently supposed to be one word. But it's based on a French comic book series named The Last Man, so I guess that makes sense. Thankfully, the game itself isn't boring. Developed by a French studio called Piranha King and released in 2016, I think this is basically trying to be a spiritual successor to Power Stone. It has objects around the stage that you can toss at your opponents, there's various weapon drops you can pick up, and there's these gear looking things that you can collect, and if you get 3 of them, your character temporarily transforms into a more powerful version. However, unfortunately, the powered up form isn't unique per character, and seems to be randomly selected before the match starts, so every character will change into the same form for that match. One aspect about this game is that it's designed with 2v2 combat in mind, and you and your teammate effectively share a health bar. You can play 1v1 if you want to, but there doesn't seem to be an option for a 3 or 4 player free-for-all, which is a rather weird design decision. But a result of this approach is that there is a unique mechanic of being able to revive your fallen teammate with a small amount of health if they get knocked out, giving you a chance to make a comeback. The only way to win is to deplete the opposing team's health, as you can't get knocked off the stage at all. Even though it looks like you can on some of the stages, you'll just hit an invisible wall. I must say that if you choose to fill the players up with AI, that it takes no prisoners, and there doesn't seem to be a way to adjust the difficulty level. Of all the games in this video not called Power Stone, LastFight definitely feels the closest, but it also seems to be missing that X factor that made Power Stone so good. If you need that fix, however, this isn't a bad, more accessible option. Next on the list is Combat Core, also released in 2016 and developed by Madmans. This is a futuristic sci-fi themed take on the genre, with pretty stylish visuals. Aside from your usual light and heavy attacks, grabs, blocks, jumps and dodges, what's interesting about this is that you can select what kind of special moves, or core attacks as this game calls them, you have before the match starts. The amount you use these moves is restricted by your core energy, which builds up naturally over time, but can build up faster under some circumstances, such as standing in a special zone on the stage. The action is fast paced, but the camera does a good job keeping up with the ongoing battle. Stocks are lost simply by depleting health, which in this game is indicated by a number rather than some kind of health bar. Once again, you can't get knocked off the stage. However, there isn't really much stage interaction here, beyond weapon crates that occasionally appear in the arena, and some stages having an aforementioned charge area. A few of the stages do have some verticality to them, with floating platforms, but these don't really make a huge difference to the gameplay. If you ever find yourself on top of one of them, you'll likely want to get back down to the main area of the stage fairly quickly to rejoin the fray. In this game, more than any others in this list, you can find yourself on the receiving end of some big damage due to a combo or core attack very quickly, so you always need to be on your toes. What's also interesting about this game is that it has a character editor, which already is pretty rare, but it also has a core editor as well to customize your special moves. If you like this kind of game, but prefer something faster and more hectic than some of the others I've covered, then Combat Core is definitely worth checking out, as it offers a different experience, a unique visual presentation, is slick and is pretty polished. It also offers online play. The final game I'll cover is Mighty Fight Federation, which is the newest game in this video, having been released in 2020 and developed by Komi Games. This game probably has the most amount of depth to it out of all the games in this video. The fighting mechanics here are actually very advanced. Light and heavy attacks are here, so are special moves and dodges, including spot dodges actually, but there are also specific launcher moves, wall jumps, combo breakers, command grabs, and moves that grant temporary buffs. In addition to all of this, there is a meter called a hype meter that builds as you take or inflict damage, that can be used to execute powerful super moves or build up further to temporarily activate a powered up state called hype factor. The fighting engine here is honestly incredibly deep, and you could spend a long time trying to master it. And it makes sense, considering this game was built with competitive play in mind. That's not to say that it lacks the pick up and play appeal that platform fighters have, because it's just as easy to get into this as any other game in the genre, but probably rewards more time spent with it than any others. Of course, online play is supported too. This game also has the most amount of content out of all the games I've covered previously as well, having the largest number of playable characters, stages and modes, including specific missions for each fighter. The cast is quite eclectic too. You have a werewolf, a magical angel, a sentient computer virus, a killbot, a biomutant, a drunk animated skeleton and more. It even features a couple of third-party characters, as Yuka and Laylee and ToeJam and Earl are included, complete with their own stages. The only real downside here is that there's pretty much no stage interaction. There's no items or weapons that spawn in, and the platforms, while they exist on most stages, generally only play a small role, though some stages are designed a bit more around them. Some of the arenas have walls that can be smashed down to open up more room to fight in, but that's about it. While the lack of such things is understandable given the focus on esports, it's a pity there isn't some kind of casual mode included that enables such elements. Still, Mighty Fight Federation is a great game and well worth your time. So there you go, there's a stack of 3D platform fighters that you can check out, a mixture of old and new. If you enjoy 2D platform fighters, then you might want to give some of these a go to see if they click with you. Have you played any of these yourself? Have you played any others that I missed? Drop me a comment below and let me know, as I do read all of them and I enjoy the community interaction. Give me a thumbs up if you like this video, it really helps a lot, and don't forget to subscribe to stay up to date with my content. Thanks for watching and see you next time.